ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2021. It's been an interesting start already. You are at the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting with myself, Mike Ergo, First Selectman, Nita Kincaid, Selectwoman, Bob Carlson, Selectman, and Christine Dias, Admin Finance for the town, along with Bailey Talbot, our Administrative Assistant for the town as well here. You also see on the screen Ryan Burdick from North Stonington Ambulance, which is the third item on the agenda. We will start our agenda as we always do with public comment. We changed it a little bit to try to have a more efficient meeting and really allow for everyone to be able to comment. Sometimes people would get here late and would like to have commented at the beginning here, or just wanted to make their comments and be able to not stay for the meeting. So we want to be able to try to accommodate everyone. So we have public comment on agenda and non-agenda items listed at the beginning here. And then also at the end, we'll have public comments on agenda items. We will ask that all comments are limited to 2 minutes in respect for everyone's time so we can run an efficient meeting. And again, we've tried to do things as this whole COVID atmosphere has happened. We've been kind of trial and error, and I think we've done a pretty good job. And talk to the selectmen about this, and we're going to give this a whirl. So with that, I'd open it up for any public comments on any items with regards to the agenda or not agenda items. And go ahead.
Brett, you're recognized.
Hi, it's Brett Mastriani. Two items that I wanted to mention. The change of the agenda, I understand how it could make things more timely and the process smoother, but I have to say that was one change that I thought was great with talking during agenda items especially before you guys vote on something. I think it's important, especially during COVID, since a lot of the public doesn't have the information that you guys are talking about when that agenda item is coming up. So it's hard for someone to give you any kind of feedback on agenda items prior to those items if they don't have any opportunity to see them ahead of time. So that was one nice thing about being able to have a public comment after you guys talked about it or presented anything and before you guys voted. I think maybe that should be something to look at if we don't have that information ahead of time. And secondly, the MOA that you guys are discussing tonight, my comment on that prior to you guys voting is I think we're unduly charging the town with that MOA based on the square foot percentages, mostly due to the fact that the Board of Ed isn't using that full percentage for actually offices and people in there. And if we're leasing out the other two buildings for schools between their employees and the school children or adults, whoever ends up using it, the use of water, utilities, and anything else would be a lot higher than just a general office of 6 people. So I think we're shortchanging the town if we do it strictly on square footage based on that. That was just one thing I thought if you guys could look into, because they wouldn't be using ideally the 13% of overall usage based on what they do there. That was it. I appreciate your time.
I don't see any other comments or hands up.
Brian, you're recognized. Sorry about that.
Am I in?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm concerned about the trails and things that I see going in around town. I find it kind of invasive, actually, to private landowners that pay a lot of taxes to have people walking around close to their property, which they most likely bought because they wanted the privacy. I was wondering if there could be a policy set up that when trails go in, that the landowners that are really close to the trail or board of the trail be notified, and maybe even stretch it a little farther, that those that are affected get a percentage off their taxes, since they're gonna share it with public that they don't even know. And the other part is I understand that the state, they don't pay much taxes on their land anymore. And I think we ought to have an ordinance that the state pays taxes just like a private citizen does, because they have land in our town. So anyways, those are my two comments on the land. I really like to get a handle on this trail thing, because I see trails going all over, and you never know who's going to be walking around close to the properties. And that's my only comment for tonight.
Phone number ending in 3754, you're recognized.
Yes, Sean Murphy. I just wanted to echo Brett's comments concerning speaking on each agenda item. And the other item I have is being a non-agenda item was over a year ago at a selectman meeting, I was told that the town would be inspecting the drainage system using cameras. 2 attempts were made by the town to do that, and they never followed through on doing that. And I feel that it really needs to be done before, rather than just waiting until a bad rain and discovering we have a problem. I think they ought to be inspected on a regular basis. Possibly, Mike, can you tell me what the status is on that?
I don't have that information, Sean. I know we were out there. I thought it was completed, but I'll have to follow up with you offline on that one. But I will follow up with you.
If you would, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madeline, you're recognized.
Better now?
Yes.
Madeline Jeffrey, I just want to say hello. I think the whole concept of having the meetings on Zoom is wonderful. There are many people like me who don't necessarily speak up at the meetings, but we have been listening and we have been trying to pay attention. And I want to thank all of you for setting this up. And there are lots of important topics before us as a town. And I think we have good thoughts and good ideas. And I think this is a good way of solving some of our difficulties. So it's great to be able to listen in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that is it for public comment. I'd like to thank the commenters for having your voices heard. With that, we'll go to our, actually with that, I would like to, if I could, I'd like to add an agenda item. What I'd like to do is move agenda, just move everything from agenda 4 down an item, and in agenda 4 items place add a sustainable CT update for the selectmen. If there's no opposition to that, I'd make that motion.
Yes.
Second on that, Nita?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so then first up is North Stonington Ambulance Association staffing. I was contacted this past week by Jim Tuttle and Ryan Burdick, both are who are on the screen here from the North Sorenson Ambulance. And they indicated that they would like to, or planning to, add full-time staff to the ambulance within the constraints of the funds that they have already. So I said that it would be really good for them to come to the Board of Selectmen to talk about it, as well as to inform the public about this. I know they did post for the jobs already. Again, there was no intent in asking for any more funds from the town to do this, but I thought it'd be good for them to give an update on what they're thinking. And of course, we have a committee that's looking at both our ambulance and fire and in kind of best practices. So, I think we're really anxious to hear from that committee as well. But, this is happening now. So I, defer to Jim or Ryan, whoever wants to give us some info on it. We'll go from there. Jim's frozen.
It looks like he's having technical difficulties.
It is.
So yeah, anyways, we came forward with this plan in light of COVID, and it's kind of been a roller coaster of an issue for the past few years. Is the per diem model of staffing for the ambulance just isn't getting it done during weekdays anymore. Oh, there he is. I'll let Ted take over.
There you go, Jim. You just got to unmute.
All right.
No.
We got you. You're kind of frozen up again there. Yeah, there you seem a little better.
All right. Let me just get this door shut so there's no noise.
No problem. Take your time.
All right. So as you know, we've had the per diem model of staffing since about 1997. It's worked. It's been sufficient. However, we've had patterns over the past few years where staffing has gone off. We haven't been able to fill shifts. So we've looked into a couple different options this year with COVID, and most of our employees have full-time jobs elsewhere in EMS, so they're not able to. There was some constraints from their full-time employers of working second jobs. I myself, my full-time employer at the time, forbid me to work for a second job in EMS because of exposure risks. So between that and the general pattern we've been having with per diem staff, our staffing's been lacking. We looked into hiring more per diem staff. We did hire a few more per diems who, at the time of interview and everything, had great weekday availability. Once it came down to it, their positions changed where they could work nights and some weekends. However, days was no longer an option. We looked into a staffing company that was going to be basically out of our reach cost-wise. We also looked into adding full-time staffing, and after running numbers, we decided to go that route. We plan on adding 4 full-time staff. One is an administrator who will carry out payroll, taxes, are the company's administrative side. She'll be assisted by 3 full-time EMTs, or he or she will be assisted by 3 full-time EMTs. They'll also share some of the other responsibilities that our past supervisors have had, as in scheduling, vehicle maintenance, scheduling, checks and equipment. We are going to be offering benefits to these 4 individuals. We've looked into health insurance, dental and vision, and they'll also be offered PTO time, paid time off, and sick time. Their schedule will be Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m., 6 p.m. They will cover all day shifts. That'll leave our Monday through Saturday night shifts available for our per diem staff, and Sundays day and night shifts for per diem staff. We're hoping, we've had a couple extra volunteers sign on recently, so we're hoping to maybe at least fill 1 shift a week with volunteers, along with second crew calls. But with this pandemic and the general nature of a per diem staffing model, our Our call volume has increased. However, our staffing has not increased to meet the call volume. So that's why we're going forward with a full-time staff. We have seen, like I said, we have seen an increase in call volume this year. I don't relate that to COVID because it doesn't seem to be COVID-related calls that we're dealing with, whereas most of the other agencies in the area, their call volume has dropped. I think it's probably an increasing aging population and maybe more people in town utilizing 911. The state went up on our billing rates, so with the increase in call volume and the increase in billing rates, we've done pretty well recovering billing revenue this year and last year. So we're with these four full-time staff, we'll be well within our budget. We're not requesting any more funding from the town. We're going to use our existing budget as it is, and all our numbers work out. So we're confident we can go through with this.
Ryan, you have anything you want to add, or?
Oh, he pretty much hit it right out of the ballpark.
So I'd open it up for questions from the selectmen. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Jim, do you see any current North Staunton Ambulance Association members taking on any of these positions?
We've opened it up for internal application. We haven't started interviews yet. Our application deadline is the 21st for the first position, and we'll start interviews after that. Wednesday, the EMT spots, the 3 EMT spots will be posted, and we'll start accepting applications from them. We've actually received quite a few applications for the administrator. Like I said, the application period's open till the 21st, and we won't start the interviews till the following week. So,
Thank you.
I just want to say I think it's wonderful that you've been able to do this. I think it's a very good thing. Thank you.
thank you.
I know you guys are going to go over your budgets, obviously, when it comes to presentation time, so we'll have more specifics on that. I wanted to make sure that we had you in here because you posted the jobs, and I'm sure people would be wondering about it. You know, from my vantage point, I think if you're able to do it with the funds that we have and we're able to provide a better service to our community, then it certainly makes a lot of sense. I know it's been a challenge over the years, sometimes hitting all those calls, and you guys have done a great job, you know, with the resources that you've had available. So I think it's good news.
And we 822 calls this year, so we're gaining on 1,000 calls a year. I mean, this is the most calls we've ever done. And like I said, I can't, looking at the calls, I can't really relate it to COVID pandemic. It seems to be just a lot of regular medical calls.
Any other questions from the selectmen? Go ahead, Bob.
Just one, Jimmy, a little off topic. Is the EMS meetings that you were having with that committee still meeting, or have you been not meeting because of the holidays, and are you going to get back meeting again, or where does that stand?
We have a meeting scheduled, I believe, for the 25th to go over some of the data we've received, the little bit of data we did receive back. We did have a holiday break, and then there was an email. I guess somebody's email went down, so there was some miscommunication there, but the 25th we're scheduled for another meeting.
Great. Is that a 6 o'clock meeting or a 3 o'clock meeting? Or
6 o'clock, I believe.
Great. Thank you.
No other questions from the board? Okay. Well, we'll look forward to hearing back from you guys as far as how the hiring goes. I'm guessing based on the timeline, you probably will have some updates for us by the time you present, which is, I think we've got you on the tentative calendar for February 10th to present your actual budget. So I'm sure you'll have some more information by then.
Yep, will do.
Great. Well, thank you guys for taking the time.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
Night.
All right, with that, we had made an agenda move with Sustainable CT, and what I'd like to do is invite Alexis, if we could promote Alexis to a panelist. Alexis has been our our leader in the Sustainable CT initiative, which was very exciting to obtain our first grant this past year to help save the Sheets Forest and Putker Road, and we were able to successfully get that grant. And we were also successfully able to obtain bronze certification again this past year. And Alexis and I have talked a little bit about how we see Sustainable CT in the future. And so, Alexis, I did forward you guys an email, but it was very late today. You may not have seen it. So I thought Alexis would come on and talk a little bit about the future of the Sustainable CT movement here in North Stonington. So Alexis, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, so Mike and I had just discussed after, and I think actually everybody who had been involved talking about, it's a big undertaking. It's become a very involved process, and it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of take note of what all the fantastic efforts of the town kind of as a whole over the course of the year, and apply all initiatives that are currently underway or have been completed over the past year, or in some times there's a look back period in the different categories that are addressed with Sustainable CT. But when we were kind of taking stock of where we stood after this past certification process, you know, there were two things that stood out. There's a lot of, you know, involvement that is required just in order to get the type of resources and information to be able to go through the certification process, because there's a lot of documents that need to be uploaded and a lot of information and data that needs to be provided. So we're already kind of going out to different partners within the community to solicit this information. So to have these kind of parties involved in the process would probably just make a smoother kind of, you know, the Sustainable CT initiative would be a lot easier and more streamlined from kind of the process standpoint, but also from the perspective of kind of moving things forward on the Sustainable CT initiative. So rather than it being kind of reactive to what we've already done, kind of looking forward and being able to design what we want to do as a town in these different areas on a go forward basis, then we can kind of proactively take matters kind of into our own hands and work on projects that are longer term, rather than it being strictly just to try to get points for different areas of the Sustainable CT undertaking. So with those two things in mind, just kind of from a process and procedure standpoint, but also in kind of moving the town forward, thought that it might make sense to have a more official town committee, to have it be a more ongoing process rather than just, you know, this couple months that we are leading up to the certification deadline each year. And what I wanted to also mention about Sustainable CT, when I first got involved, I thought, oh, it's going to be really, you know, what in my mind was sustainability, which was, you know, kind of things like renewable energy and, you know, maybe land preservation, but it's very, very comprehensive. The different areas go everywhere from historical preservation to, you know, waste management to, you know, more options for public transportation, to even something like supportive local businesses and our local economy. And so I wanted to just mention that there's kind of a breadth of different options in terms of participation from different individuals. It's not just limited to, you know, those who want more, you know, land preservation. There's a large scope of different interests that are represented within the Sustainable CT kind of umbrella. So I think there's a lot of areas that potentially people might want to get involved in based on the different components. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Mike.
No, I think that's a good summary. I mean, basically, you know, as we went through it, I know the selectmen are well aware, because we had this on our agenda a number of times and kind of looked at different areas, and you know, Nita kind of stepped up to help out with one of the areas, which that in of itself was a huge undertaking for just one little area within I think it was the historic the Gallup House, but what we're looking to do is, I think, get the word out there about these different areas and build a pretty comprehensive committee, because, you know, Sustainable CT is, I just see just the potential for this program. It's been really great because it's helped us to recognize things we have done, as Alexis said, but this can help drive decisions and drive the direction of the town in a really sustainable manner if we're proactive with it. And we have more of a committee that's engaged in this. And I think when you look at the areas, and I'll just read some of them that we were talking about. Like, if you think about the types of people that would want to help, I mean, these are the different areas that Alexis kind of identified. So inclusive and equitable community impacts is one area. So equity and inclusion in the town's engagement with constituents. Thriving local economies, support of local businesses. And you think about each of these areas, and you think about if we got one person that was really interested in kind of helping in these areas, because there's so many subcategories of actions that we can do within these areas. Well-stewarded land and natural resources, water management, open space, wildlife, vibrant and creative cultural ecosystems, arts and culture. I think as we went through this, we found that there were so many things, so many great ideas, so many things we would have really liked to do, but we're just only one or two people. And, you know, Juliet and Christine were really helpful in the process as well. And a lot of it was, like I said, just kind of recognizing things we'd already done, but I think we want to be more proactive. So I guess the discussion is, you know, how do the selectmen feel about maybe making this more of a actual town committee and trying to recruit people to be on it with the opportunity for really building this out. Yes, Bob.
So, yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, we've had committees we've set up before that unfortunately have gone by the wayside because of inactivity, or like most committees, one or two people take on the lion's share of the work and the other ones are there for the social part of it. But then when it comes down to doing work, that doesn't happen. So if, Alexa, you can put together a committee that would be active and get things done. I know as a selectman, or if it's somebody that's on another board, we have so much on our plate already. It's tough to add these pieces to it, but get a committee that was geared towards just looking at sustainable North Stonington, then that would make sense to me. So, and then you would report back to the first selectman and the board of selectmen anyway. So, yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I think that if you are able to set up a committee, I think that you should have some committee training, because I think in the past, some of the committees have fallen by the wayside because they didn't have proper committee training as far as how to write an agenda, how to post an agenda, when it needs to be posted, and the proper way to do things. So any new committee going forward should have that training anyway, but I think it's a good idea for the town, and good luck with finding members.
Nita, what do you think?
I think that the town is well on its way, even under the conditions that we're in right now, to be really useful. In a lot of the people who are moving in, I get the sense would be very liking this kind of thing. I think we should be looking for young people and getting them into some of the things that brought them here to begin with. How we can do it, I can't tell you on the spot, but I do see a lot of new people. I see a lot of children that are young, et cetera. We ought to, you know, think about what we want to focus on. And so, you know, I think it's going to take a while. And it's what we had to do this past year, with the pandemic. You couldn't get to people. You couldn't get any information. So we need to be cautious about not bringing people in right away if we've got another few months of not being able to talk to each other in person and stuff like that. I honestly think too.
And I think this is the kind of thing, depending on the types of people that sign up, it's possible that, you know, having a remote operation on this is not, you know, I know a lot, you know, Alexa's certainly one of them, and we've all kind of found a way to reinvent ourselves in a mobile workplace in so many ways. So I think this work could certainly be done that way as well. But I think you're right, Nita. There's always a lot of new people. They don't come to like meetings. A lot of people don't have any idea or even interest in how government works, but they really care about the community. They care about the climate. They moved here for the reasons they did. And this could really get some folks involved in something cool that's different. So what I would ask is then if we favor it, you know, as far as, you know, we could put the ask out there, or to let people know that this is something we're looking into. And I could probably just ask them to email the town clerk like we've done in the past for other boards and commissions. And then we could take this up at a future meeting to just kind of officially create the committee, if that works. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. Great. So that's good. Alexis, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. Thanks for your support.
Yeah, thank you for all your work on this. It's really been awesome. And for us to get bronze certification a second year in a row, it's really cool. I'd like to hope we'll get silver this coming year at some point, maybe in the fall. We'll see. We'll see what the committee, this group comes up with. So more to come.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Next up is the additional appropriation for ledge light. We already did this. However, I think the number that we initially approved was a number based on an amount which was not the amount that ledge light was basing it on, a different amount. So the amount that they requested from us is actually a little bit less based on our 10% allocation. So I just wanted to re-approve this additional appropriation for ledge light, but in a different amount of $3,772.80, coming from entering into B2807. We already discussed this last meeting, and basically ledge light's done an incredible amount of work and is really, bursting at the seams with the need in the community for their services. So each community that they serve, as well as Uncas, has been requested to give this 10%, which is really based on the some of the funding we got from the state. So we're just giving basically a piece of that funding to ledge light so they can continue to provide the services to us. So it's a lesser amount than we approved last time. I just looked for a motion to approve that amount for the additional appropriation.
Wait, just for clarity, this is going back to the Board of Finance for final approval, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Well, do you know what the original amount was? I have it somewhere, but.
Yes. I don't know if Christine or I will find it quicker. Christine, do you have it handy?
Hold on, we're racing, I'm gonna win. So the original amount was $5,624.
All right, so this is about $2,000 less. So yeah, it makes sense to me. I would motion that we, since we already approved it once for a higher number, that we reapprove it at this lower number and send it off to the Board of Finance for final approval.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0-0. I wanted to, agenda item number 6, or which was 5 on the agenda, down, Winterchog solar update and discussion. So I haven't heard back from the attorney with regards to preparing another RFP for the solar over on Winterchog, but it occurred to me that I'm thinking we may want to second think this. Although I know we had voted, and we talked about a town meeting and that was the plan. There are a number of major solar projects that are going to be coming forth in town. My fear is that, knowing solar, first of all, I think solar is great, especially on land that's, already clear or not prime farmland, places that really make a lot of sense. There are some larger projects that are in the works that have, some of them have gone to siting council. They're going to be in North Stonington. And my fear would be that we're going to have these projects come up at the same time as this other project. And I think the townspeople are only going to want so much solar in town. I think you see it in other communities where there's, kind of not necessarily support for it in some areas. We don't have a lot of choice when it comes to a solar project. The siting council dictates that. There's not, and I'm not against solar in any way, especially if it makes sense. This particular area on Winterchog, I think that there was areas that it seemed to make sense. But given the fact that the initial proposal kind of fell through, the second proposal group that was working on it didn't really move things forward either. And given the fact that there's some fairly sizable solar projects that I think are going to take place in town, I think there may be other opportunities to look at the community solar model with possible partnership with some of these other projects. You know, we haven't had those conversations yet, but versus kind of, you know, going into land where we'd have to take trees down, and I think it was appealing for the potential revenue, but it hasn't come through yet. And I would just hate to see all this solar kind of come up at once in the town to be put in a position where they're just not comfortable. And that's how I could see things kind of unfolding, knowing that there's a couple of other bigger projects coming out. I just wanted to have a discussion with the selectmen about this.
Mike, to have a discussion, I think it would be useful if we took the time, maybe at the next meeting, to look at the kinds of areas that we think that people are thinking about putting the solar in, so that we know what we could worry about. I know some people are worried about it, people who are living close to it and feeling like, you know, it's not what they want to see when they're looking across the street, kind of thing. So I mean, I think we ought to have an understanding of what are the areas that are most likely to have people wanting to come in, or we know already are being looked at.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, I know when we put our solar in, because you know we have solar, we were so careful to make sure how it looked, where it looked, and not, you know, that's a small thing, but some people just throw these things together and they're not great.
So there's rules that they have to follow going through the siting council, and there's things we can enforce and not enforce. And I think there's going to be great revenue for the town in some of the solar, and they have to have setbacks, and they have to have buffers, and they have to have all that stuff. So we can certainly talk about where these projects are possible, but we have no choice. I mean, just to be clear, we don't have any say, and I wouldn't want to have the people feel like we do, because they really don't. It's overseen by the siting council, even zoning. The only thing, you know, that really can come up, I think, is like a safety issue or something like that. But I can talk with Juliet about it, and perhaps we could come back at a future meeting and talk about where we at least think proposed solar is going to go. That's a good point.
So, Mike, are you saying that a solar company could come in and buy the property between like Holly Green and the police mall and put solar panels there, and we couldn't do anything to stop that?
Yeah, solar is basically, I mean, I don't want to confess to be an expert on this, but from what I understand about it, it's basically it's approvable almost anywhere. There's not all that many rules and guidelines to, you know, they have to be able to handle, you know, the water, you know, to make sure drainage is good and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's completely possible. But then they have to also have, you know, there's a period of time where people can comment. So, you know, comments can be made about buffers and things like that. So there's a whole process that has to happen. But like in general, there's not a lot of reason to deny solar.
All right, so they would have to go through planning and zoning, correct?
Well, they would have to go through planning and zoning, but planning and zoning isn't the ultimate authority on the solar projects. The siting council is, it's the state.
Well, I'm just thinking that one of the great attributes of our town is how scenic it is. And my job had me driving through southern Rhode Island over the last 30 years, and I saw some beautiful farms and turf farms. Now they have solar all over the place, and you drive down 138 from Connecticut towards the University of Rhode Island, and all you see is solar panels. So I would hate to have something like that happen to our town, and I think that anyway, we'd be able to fight that. We would. If you have a solar project, you know, somewhere where you can't see it from the road, I don't think it's a problem at all. But I can't see anyone that moved to North Stonington wants to see solar panels from the road. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump to any conclusions on anything here. So there has to be setbacks and stuff like that. So I don't want to jump to any conclusions about any of these projects as far as, you know, what may or may not be taking place. All I'm talking about on this and I don't necessarily even agree or disagree with you, Bob. Like, I think, I don't know that we'd want to fight against solar. I mean, I'm not sure that that's the case. Like, I mean, there's definitely a great opportunity for revenue if it makes sense as to where they're putting it, if the neighbors have been, you know, talked to about it. I think there's a whole process. So, you know, that's kind of a separate issue. My concern is that with the amount of solar that's potentially being discussed in a couple of areas, that I'm not sure we want to also be putting a project up where we might be able to, you know, the whole idea behind this initially was A, yes, the revenue for the town, but B, the community solar aspect of it. And so folks could buy in to the solar if they didn't want to put it on their houses or whatever. And a lot of that kind of fell apart through the process. And meanwhile, now we've got some hiking trails set up over on Winnichog. You know, it's mostly forestry. There's wetlands over there. I just basically don't think it's wise to follow it through right at the moment. You know, I just think it's better. I just wanted to bring it back up for discussion because it's something that's kind of been out there. And there just hasn't been. I think it was probably 2 months ago. We had talked with the solar attorney, Paul, and he was going to put another RFP together. And I hadn't heard back from him, but I just feel like it's probably wise just to kind of wait. As far as like an update on other projects that are potentially pending, I can speak with Juliet about that. So we might have an update that may be more appropriate to talk about in planning and zoning, which we could certainly have a joint meeting of some kind. But I'm happy to talk with Juliet about that.
Mike, to answer your question on this particular project, I have no problem with this project not moving forward. I thought we had a lot of pushback on it anyway. That was that, but famous before COVID. That was one of our famous last meetings where there was a lot of different voting going on. The nays and the yays and the hands and the ultimately paper ballot. So I did pass. It wasn't the original people that were in here. I voted no against going back to a second person without going to another town meeting. The fact that that has not happened does not hurt my feelings at all, and I have no problem with us not doing solar there at this time.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll just kind of like just put that aside, and there'll be no action on moving any further RFPs or anything forward with regards to solar. In fact, I think probably we should have the minutes reflect it, and just take a vote to not pursue a further RFP on the Winnichog solar initiative at this time. So I'd look for a motion. I'll make the motion to not pursue that. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so motion carries 3-0-0. So we'll just table that for now. I do think there's an opportunity down the road when our landfill is going to be capped. You know, that certainly lends itself to solar, but we're not there obviously right now. So, you know, we can talk about that years down the road. All right, moving on. Agenda item 7, which was 6 on the agenda, but we added that item, would be 119 Clarks Falls Road update. This is a pretty old item. This came up several town meetings ago. We approved the sale of that property. If you all remember, keeping North Stonington affordable was the offer that we moved forward with. And at that time, everything kind of came to a standstill because of the deed and the fact that we were told that it was going to be too complicated to clear the deed. So it kind of just stopped. And to KNSA's credit, they didn't kind of stop. They didn't kind of give up on it. They continued to talk about it, work on it. They were talking with their own attorney about it. And it looks as if we have found a way to clear that deed up, which would be great because that property just sits vacant. It would be nice to see that turn into something. You know, a small affordable housing would be just fantastic. So I just wanted to bring this back up because we have found a way to get the deed cleared up. I've spoken with our contract attorney on this, and he is going to proceed in order to get this cleared up and in a way that's they can legally clear this deed up. So it's basically says, in essence, this isn't going to be used as a school. house. I mean, that was obviously centuries ago, and that we would like to move forward with a different use. And there's a way that he can do that through these actions that the attorney can take. I just wanted to update the public and the selectmen on that. There's no other action necessary. We've already gone to town meeting on this. We've already voted in favor of it. It's just been over a year since we've actually discussed it. So I'll be moving that forward with the attorney. And I just, I don't know if you have any questions or any comments you want to. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Mike, do we still own that property, or does KNSA own it? Because I know they were going to ask, they were going to buy it for $1 from the town. Do they own the property, or do we still have it?
No, the town still owns it because we couldn't clear the deed up, but this would give us the ability to sell it to them with that same agreement of, I think it was something around, we'd net somewhere around $20,000 or $30,000 after they actually sell the property. So it was a winning situation for everyone, really, to get the property fixed up, occupied, and a little bit of revenue for the town. So, it was a great deal. Go ahead, Nita.
Just a question. Now that's right next to the building that was sold to, well, you know his name better than I.
Yes, Palmer.
Palmer, right, exactly. Is that being well cared for?
I have not been out there to specifically look at that property recently. That is a good question. And probably needs some follow-up. I'll take a look at it. I'll put it on my list to follow up with, to look at that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic?
Yeah, yes, quick, Mike. When KNSA looked at it the first time before they got stopped by the deed restriction, did they already look at that as far as septic and water and all that, and everything was good to go? They could make it because I know there's no septic on there now. I don't believe I think there was outhouses. So is that they can get that ready to go for a residence at this point? If the deed restriction has changed.
Yeah, they did some preliminary work on that to look at the land plot along with Ledgelite to make sure that there was the opportunity for septic and water there, and the plot does allow for it. I'm not sure as far as what more work needs to be done there to just confirm that, but the preliminary work was done to the point where they were willing to move it forward and felt comfortable in that manner. So,
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Moving on, number 7, which is actually number 8 now. The MOU with the Board of Education. So I think we're all aware that going into the school building, the middle high school was, a lot of unknowns, and we came to some agreements early on last year with the Board of Ed with an arrangement, knowing that we really knew that it probably was going to have to be tweaked, but we just weren't sure what we were getting into. The elementary school was still actually occupying the space up until the end of the summer because they had to move into their building. So we kind of were met at the beginning of the fiscal year with a building that we were going to end up having to take over, but was being more occupied by the elementary school still. So, what we did last year, just as a refresher for everybody, was we just said, okay, based on some conversations, Gary Nino at the time, who's, kind of an expert in this kind of stuff, we just tried to put a number on a square footage number and say, just pay us this in rent and we'll figure this out on a more permanent basis going forward next fiscal year. So, this is kind of an attempt, not sure that an actual lease needs to happen with the school, although that's possible that we could do, but really this is kind of just putting an agreement together that says this is who's responsible for what, and this is the arrangement that we think makes sense. It's a tough situation with the building because the building has utilities. We don't have the ability to separate them. So what we've done in this, with the Board of Ed as well as with the potential tenants that we may have is we just kind of took it and looked at, just divide the square footage out and then just basically charge utilities based on the square footage that they're utilizing. So in this case, the Board of Ed has indicated the space that they are using is about 13% of the total building. And this MOU just describes the space that they're going to use, as well as what that 13% of the utilities makes up. Just talks about what they will do and what we will do. As far as, they have the internet there, which they'll continue to provide. Board of Ed's going to clean their areas and the bathrooms and hallways of their areas. That the Board of Ed will continue to provide the grounds maintenance, which we've discussed as part of their continued maintenance. And that's something that I looked at in great detail with Christine Wagner this past summer. We actually looked at the town taking over all the maintenance for the schools, and it just didn't make sense based on the analysis that we did. So we are going to continue with the school taking care of their grounds as well as this building. The town does the snow removal. And we've been taking on all the repairs and, the utilities and basically how building maintenance will be requested, through the town and the media center, which will continue to be scheduled through the town as well. So this is kind of how things have been working, except we're writing it out more specifically. So there's just no question, no matter who's here 2 or 3 years from now, this is the agreement we're putting together. And the second thing is, instead of getting this $1.98 per square foot fee, we're just not charging rent to the Board of Ed. At least that's what's being proposed. We're just going to take the utilities, their percentage of the utilities. So, it's we're not trying. It's all the same pot of money, really. I mean, it's the taxpayer money. We're not trying to make money on the Board of Education by any means. We just want to cover the cost of the building, which we're talking more specifically about tomorrow. We're talking about the building in general. This is just a small piece of the building. And the Board of Ed did review this MOU at their meeting Wednesday. I went to their meeting, I listened in, they didn't vote on it or anything like that. But I wanted to bring this to the Board of Selectmen, so we had a discussion about it as well. And we could talk about, any feedback or thoughts or concerns you have about it.
What does MOU stand for?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Bob.
So Mike, is it safe to say that you got together with the Board of Ed and crafted this? Because you kept saying we, so I assumed you meant you and someone from the Board of Ed got together and came up with these parameters, or?
Yeah, I had a meeting about a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, with Christine Wagner, Mr. Peter Nero. I think
I was there.
you were there, Christine, and was Greg there?
No, Deb Martin was.
Deb Martin was there, yeah. So we just, we had said after we came up with the initial thought about this last year that we would get together and try to figure out something a little bit more solid, for the future. So we had just a general discussion, and we basically have kind of agreed to the terms of this in theory, but certainly nothing's carved in stone. So if you have feedback, that's why we're talking about it now.
All right, so is this going to you said this went to the Board of Ed already?
So yeah, the Board of Ed looked at it Wednesday just because they happened to have a meeting, and we're all trying to budget now. So it's important that we talk about this now if there's any feedback or concerns or thoughts. So yeah, they talked about it at their last meeting. They didn't vote on it or anything, but they did talk about it.
But we're not voting on anything tonight either, are we?
No, we don't have to. I mean, we can certainly talk about it at the next meeting. It's just the only thing is they're budgeting. So if there's some sort of major concern about this, they would need to know, and we're budgeting too. So whatever number it is that we agree on is going to go into our budget. So we don't have too much time to kind of iron it out. But what kind of thoughts or feedback do you have?
Well, this is one of those areas where when we talked about the format of the meeting, and I emailed you today saying that I would be more comfortable on items like this on the agenda where we could have discussion, because if Gary Nito's on the line, if somebody from the Board of Ed was on the line, we could get discussion on this before voting rather than wait to the end. So I mentioned in that email that I'm not comfortable voting on something without having anyone that's on the call be able to discuss it. So I know it doesn't in line with the before the meeting and after the meeting discussion, but I think there's certain line items that need discussion while we're discussing, while we're talking about them. And because you've got people in the audience probably that could weigh in on this. So, and under the new guidelines, we can't. My feeling is that if you and the Board of Ed already sat down and ironed this out, I mean, I see a line item that says that we're gonna plow snow removal with the exception of the main entrance on the Route 2 side, which would be the responsibility of the Board of Ed. So we're gonna actually have a plow on the property and stop and not plow that part. And then Board of Ed's gonna bring another plow over to finish it.
No, that's not.
Things have been discussed.
No, that's not what it is, Bob. It's just talking about, they're just going to basically shovel the walkway that they need to, because we don't really do much shoveling there. So it's not plowing. They're not plowing. It was just their entrance area.
So another concern I have is that the Board of Ed, as you said, it's all the same pot, right? So it comes out of the taxpayer's pocket, whether it goes to the Board of Ed budget or the town budget. But if we've got town use and then we've got people from outside of town, hopefully leasing out parts of these buildings, why would we then put us on the same level? Especially when the Board of Ed, they have 4 people, maybe 6 people in that building at a time. There's a lot of it's just storage space where if you've got a school with multiple people, they're using more water, they're using more electricity. So why would we not cut ourselves a break and let the Board of Ed pay at a lower level than when it comes to the expenditures? Instead of 13%, because they have 13% of the building, why would they have to pay 13%? Why wouldn't we give them a break and then pay 5% and let the people that are leasing from us pay more?
Well, Bob, right now, we don't have anybody leasing with us. So, I mean, right now, as you are aware, we are having a meeting tomorrow night because we have expenditures that far exceed any budgeted line that we have. And that's probably, I'm working very hard to try to get the space leased, but we have no tenants. So, I mean, I'm not closed-minded to charging them nothing if that's what you want to do. It's just right now the town has borne all of the responsibility for the building. And this would have been, I mean, this is how it was envisioned. We just happen to be the ones in office right now when it's come to fruition, is that we had a building that we knew we weren't going to use anymore for school. And we knew that there were going to be parts of it that the Board of Ed would be in. I mean, as far as the snow, I mean, that's why we're discussing it. I have no problem with if you feel like we should just take that part out of it and just say that we'll take care of all the snow, that's fine.
No, it's not. I was just using it as an example. I guess what I'm saying is I think you said that, was Gary Anino involved in crafting this? Did you say that early on?
No. Well, yes, Gary, I just picked Gary's brain early last year about the per square footage, but we've gotten all that information now. I mean, that was just the $1.98. That's how we came up with that number. I mean, we have to make this decision. Our board is elected to make the decision along with the Board of Ed to try to figure out an agreement. That makes sense.
I'm not advocating that we let the Board of Ed be in there for nothing, actually the administrative department, but the central office. But at the same token, it's like a shell game, because if the town taxpayers are paying and they're putting money into the Board of Ed budget, it's the same as putting the money into the town budget. It's all coming out of the same pocket. So I just don't, I don't know why we would, I guess I'm having a little trouble with the way it's presented.
Well, the way it makes sense to me, Bob, is that at least if I'm paying for my percentage of the building, I'm being careful about the expenses that I'm, using there. I mean, there's heat, there's costs associated with the building. Again, I'm totally open-minded to how we want to do this. I think that, we know that there's a large cost associated with the building. This just seemed to make sense, and the Board of Ed seemed to, at least Christine and they talked about it their last meeting. I don't think there was an incredible amount of pushback. I think the only pushback I really heard was that well, some of the rooms, they aren't, they don't have a lot of water use in certain areas, and like perhaps, maybe they shouldn't have to pay as much. And I'm totally open-minded to whatever we want to put together. We just, to be clean, we literally took the square footage of the building and we just said, okay, they're using 13%. And that's just numbers. It's just a percentage. It makes the most sense. It's clean. And we just divide that out. And it's the cleanest way to do it. The fairest and cleanest way to do it. Christine, do you have anything you want to add to it, or?
No, I mean, I think, if we were charging the $1.98 per square foot or $5 a square foot, if we were charging an actual rent, then it would make sense to, give the Board of Ed a better deal because they're part of the town. But like you said, this is just numbers. It's 13% of the building, so therefore it's 13% of the overall utilities. They may have some super servers in one of the rooms that are drawing more electricity, and we're not going to charge them more because that room happens to use more. Or they could have, more water use than another tenant because that particular tenant's using one classroom and has 2 people, and they have, 6 people for the Board of Ed. So I think when you start to look at those, when you drill down that far, you just make it too complicated. If you do the flat square footage percentage on the utilities, it's easier for us to budget it. It's easier for us to invoice them. And it's just clean, and it's easier to explain to the taxpayer how we got to those numbers. When you start to say, okay, well, they're using 13% of the building, but because it's the Board of Ed, we're gonna only charge them half of that, you get farther down the road and don't remember how you got there. So that's why I would advocate for these numbers, the way that we put it together.
I understand. But Mike said the Board of Ed hasn't voted on this yet, so my recommendation would be to wait to get some feedback from them and then discuss it at a later time.
Yeah,
We have a meeting tomorrow night, as you said, so we'll probably hear more about it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine. There's not a rush on it. I mean, as long as we settle on it sometime during the budget process, it's totally fine. So, Nita, did you have any other comments on it?
No.
Okay. Okay. Just while we're on that agenda item, I should make it known. I did hear back from Lighthouse, and unfortunately, they are not going to move forward. So we do not have Lighthouse as a potential tenant at the building anymore. I did have a walkthrough yesterday with a representative from a consortium who was very excited by the property. We'll see where it all goes. I think my opinion, I did also talk with the one of the newspapers today to try to get some coverage on the building. My opinion is that we work really hard this next few months to try to get tenants in there. And certainly, as the summer goes on, see where we're at. But, it's unfortunate, but, they've made their decision that they've decided not to move forward with the facility.
So are you're still going to do both of the sections of the building though? You've got 2 of them that you're trying to deal with. Okay.
We're trying, yeah, we're working on it. I think if we get some coverage, some press, we've got it listed, the middle school part with the MLS. So we're going to work really hard over the next few months to try to get tenants in there. I think it's a great opportunity, but if the summer kind of goes on and we don't have interest, I think we have to relook at where we're at. But I think, as I said, I walked through with a gentleman from a consortium yesterday, and his eyes were lighting up. I mean, with the opportunity that's there. So I think there is some excitement, some great opportunity. So we'll see what happens. But yes, go ahead.
You
Bob.
walk through with that. I'm sorry, Nita, go ahead. Was Nita speaking? I'm sorry.
No.
All right. So when you walk through that gentleman, did you walk through the 2-story wing or the 1-story wing?
Both.
All right. So if we have no tenant for the 1-story wing at this point, would it be worth the town's while to concentrate on the 2-story wing, which was the original plan, and possibly go back and look at opportunities for the possible demolition of the middle school building?
I don't think so. If you look at the numbers, Bob, well, first of all, the people voted 2-to-1 to try to rent the middle school wing. So that's our that is our drive. We have to do that. That's what the people told us in the vote. So that's what we should work towards. Now, if we work on that for a year or 8 months or 9 months and we're not able to get there, then I think we would go back to the people and explain that to them. But I think we should be working on both. And if you look at the, if you look at the revenue potential, I think Christine provided to you for the meeting tomorrow night. The revenue potential for these wings, it makes sense for the town because we could make some money here if we rent the entire facility out. So I think we don't need to not focus on one or focus on the other. In fact, like I said, I walked through this particular building with this gentleman and showed him the 2-story wing first. And then when we went over and looked at the 1-story wing, the middle school wing, is actually more intrigued by that side. You just don't know what people's interests are based on what their needs are. So I think, I will be working very hard on behalf of the people to try to come up with a solution here. And I think we've gotten direction from the voters in North Stonington as to what to do. Now we just have to try to execute it.
Well, I think that direction, Mike, is because at that point, we said the building wasn't coming down. There wasn't money left to demo it, and it was either leave it empty or rent it. So they voted to lease it rather than leave it empty. So to say that the voters put us in charge of renting it or leasing it because they didn't think there's an option. I don't think there was no option to say, let's tear it down or let's see what we can do to raise funds or do an appropriation or go to the state or whatever opportunities there were to take it down. So if the options leave it empty or lease it, they voted to lease it. But I think that as the town, and I don't know this, I don't know everyone in town, but I think the general feeling was if we could lease the 2-story wing, demolish the 1-story wing, and we have less expense. We have a better building that's a newer building that's 14 years newer. And we're back to where we originally wanted to be. When you were the chair of the modernization committee, that's where we originally wanted to be. Now, of course, that changed when we changed the 1-story wing to an add alternate. And there was no money left because of all the PCBs that had to be taken out of the elementary school. I know this is kind of old news, but I think if there's no one there right now that we're on the hook for to lease that building out, there might be a second. Maybe now is the time to re-look at the whole thing again. I don't see why we wouldn't take that opportunity.
Yeah, I would disagree with you on most everything you just said, because first of all, you're trying to analyze the people you talk to and their position. But I talked to different people who thought it was a great idea to get some vibrancy in the village and in order to potentially make some revenue for the town. So I think what we should do is in 6 or 8 months, take stock as to where we are. I don't think we ought to give up right this second. Like, I think we should look at it and say, okay, let's work our hardest to see if we can get anybody in there that makes sense. And if we can, that's great. I mean, if we're able to make revenue, I mean, if you look at the numbers, the possibility if we were to rent the whole place out was, $150,000 in revenue to the town. So why wouldn't we look at that? I mean, that's what we're trying to do right now. And I think if we can all agree to work on that for the next 6 to 8 months, and then take a look at things. If we can't get it rented out and we've tried all we can, then I absolutely agree with you, Bob. We should be looking at different options, but that's kind of where I think we're at now. And, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow night as far as the expenses on the building. But I wanted to make you aware that, there is no tenant and there has been other interest. We'll have some newspaper coverage about it and we'll see where it goes. Anything else on this topic? Okay. COVID-19, boom bridge. So just wanted to go on the record with the boom bridge. We are done. Boom bridge is built and the road is open. So we were all there, which was great. And, very excited that we had a soft opening, I guess you'd say, just with a couple of us there, just to kind of commemorate the fact that it actually opened after so many years being closed. So, thanks.
Cows really appreciated us.
What's the cows? Yeah. It was nice. It was nice to be able to see it open. I know the residents there are excited, although I'm sure some of them are probably not looking forward to having traffic by their house since they've enjoyed 13 years of quiet. But so I just wanted to, and just for the record, you know, I think we thought it would be around a $3 million bridge. It came in about 1.9. So that was
Wow.
pretty good news. You know, the town's portion of that was only a fraction, 10% of that.
Wow.
So that was good. Any questions on it?
So does that mean, Mike, that we, instead of paying the 10%, which was the 300,000 that we allotted, took the appropriation that we're now going to be paying, what, $190,000?
Yep, we actually already paid it. And that's absolutely correct. So yeah, we authorized an appropriation for, I think, 310,000 or something, and I believe we paid about 190,000 to the state. So.
Great, thanks.
Okay, next is the COVID-19 updates. So I just got off a call, and there's another call tomorrow. I've had a lot of calls about the COVID-19 situation now. It's getting pretty dire in southeastern Connecticut. They actually just had a call. I got off right before I was on this call with us. They had a special meeting of southeastern Connecticut because, you know, our numbers are not looking real good right now. You know, the governor's has resisted moving backwards on any opening plans, as like, you know, Rhode Island did and other states did. They took pauses. He's resisted doing that. But there's great concern, and that, I don't know that anything like that is going to happen, but there's a plea right now from all these agencies for everybody just to take it seriously. And I think it's getting harder for people because, some people have had it, maybe their experience with it wasn't that bad, but then there's people who are dying from it. I mean, it's still an obviously serious issue. And they're seeing, these get-togethers of people, whether it's small dinner parties or people just letting their guard down, and we've been talking about it for months, that's causing this uprise in cases. So basically, what they talked about on the call was that the 211 is available for testing sites. The vaccines are being administered, and you may have read, they are going to be. It looks like they're going to move to 1B next week, which is going to include people like teachers, fire police who weren't included in 1A, childcare workers, and it looks like 75 years old and plus and older are going to be eligible as well. This is next week potentially. They have the VAMS system, which is where people are uploading their information in order to make sure they do get on a priority list to get tested. To get vaccinated. So, I just want to encourage everybody, if they get the opportunity to get vaccinated, to please do so. Just to continue to wear masks. I just can tell you myself. I can count on, just a couple of hands, anyone I come in proximity with without a mask anymore. And I think that's just how we have to treat everyone as if they may have COVID. That's right now, the numbers are just rising exponentially, that we just can't let our guard down, and we just want to keep everybody safe. So. Christine, was there something else I had to hit on with that?
Yeah, we need to talk about the extension of the FFCRA.
Right, that's right.
Would you like me to talk about it?
Please.
So the employee paid sick leave for people that are impacted by COVID, it officially expired. The provision expired December 31st. So we would like to extend that for our staff who are unable to work if they have to quarantine. We'd like to extend it through March 31st. It is not giving people additional time. So if they have already used their up to 80 hours, they are not entitled to any additional time. But this is just to extend those benefits through March 31st if people need to be out sick and have not used their time yet.
So basically, we want to make sure that we are encouraging people, if they're sick, we don't want them to come to work. We want them to stay home. We want them to not infect their coworkers. So, most everyone is kind of doing some level of an extension of this to make sure that, the staff is able to. I would say I'm just very proud of the staff here. We have no one that's taken advantage of anything. Everyone is, worked as hard as they could. And, we've had a couple of staff throughout COVID who have become infected. We did not have spread within our staff, thankfully, because, we were able to take the precautions, follow the rules, follow the quarantining situation. So basically, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm not sure if it requires a vote, but I probably wouldn't be bad to take one, just to extend this policy, the COVID leave policy, as presented to you through March 31st, 2021. So I'll make the motion. Do I have a second? Nita, you second it?
Yeah.
All right. Further discussion? I'm sorry, Nita, go ahead. I mean, Christine, go ahead.
I just said the camera likes me more today, so it's not panning over to Nita. I don't know why.
I don't care.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 3-0-0. We've got some minutes.
I'll do the minutes. So I motion that we approve the minutes for the Zoom meeting of December 22nd, 2020, as submitted by Bailey.
Second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next is agenda item 12, public comment on agenda items. For anyone who joined late, I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the meeting. We have at the beginning of the meeting now, we're doing public comment on agenda and non-agenda items, and then wrapping up the agenda with public comments on agenda items at the end. I just want to, I see there's a few hands, but some of them may have been just inadvertently raised. Why don't we lower everyone's hand, and then if there's people that actually wanted to ask a question, they can re-raise their hand. Okay, so I see, go ahead.
Brian, you're acknowledged. Recognized.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, on the boom bridge, it was, did you say it was 10% less anticipated what we had to pay, or was that 10% over the whole project?
It actually was about it was more than 10% less, because we had anticipated about, Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, but 310,000 that we thought, right?
So North Stonington is responsible for 10% of the overall project. So Brian, that was where the 10% came from. We had done an additional appropriation for 316,000 whenever we did that. But I don't want to give any exact figures on the cost of the bridge until we can go back and double check the files. So
will that money be going back to the taxpayers, or where's that money going to go that we saved?
We never took it. So we authorized the appropriation for 316,000, but we didn't need to take it. So we took only 190,000 ish. I mean, we'll verify all the numbers. Obviously, the bridge just got done last week, but it was like literally $100,000 less than we thought, so it just stayed in the general fund, Brian.
All right. And the other question I had is on the school that the lighthouse decided not to go forward. Were there any particular reasons that they decided not to go forward, or didn't they disclose that?
I would defer to Lighthouse for them to comment on their reasons.
Okay.
thanks, Brian.
Let's see. Phone number ending in 3754 recognized.
Yeah, this is Sean Murphy. I just wanted to say with the MOU with the school, the utilities might, electricity and gas may work out, for per square footage. I don't think it's fair to treat water that way because they have maybe 6 people working over there, and if those buildings are full of students and instructors, the water usage is not going to be 13% by our central office space. And then if I could get clarification of Brian just made a statement about Lighthouse. Have they decided not to lease? I didn't understand that.
Yes, I made the statement, Sean, they're not going to move forward with a arrangement with us.
So that must have been a recent decision, I guess, in this last week or so. But
Yes.
so right now we don't have any leads for the entire space.
We have leads, but we don't have anybody, no one's signed yet, so.
Nobody in negotiations. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no other public comments, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.